My name is Edmo Masaka, and today I'm going to be explaining the process of carrying out a qualitative fit test following the OSHA 1910-134 standard, as well as the requirements of the Australia-New Zealand Standard 1715 of 2009. It is important that all tight-fitting respirators achieve a good seal in order to provide the expected or required protection. And the Australia-New Zealand Standard 1715 of 2009 requires that a respirator fit test be conducted before a person wears a respirator, and also annually. And in addition, a respirator fit test must be conducted whenever a different type of respirator, like different model, different style, different size, is going to be used. And also, if there are significant changes, such as weight loss or dental work, that can affect the facial seal. And then there are certain prerequisites that are required before a fit test is conducted. And this could include a medical evaluation to assure that a person is fit enough to wear a tight-fitting respirator. And also, a person shouldn't smoke or drink or chew gum at least about 30 minutes before the test is conducted. This is to avoid getting confounding results, because this can actually affect the ability of the person to test the test agent. And also, a person needs to be trained in how to properly wear a respirator and also to take it off. And also, they need to be able to train to conduct what is called a fit check. A fit check or user seal check or user fit check is always conducted every time the respirator is worn. So the qualitative fit test, or alternatively the aerosol test is a test which is used to determine the proper fit of a number of respirators. And these include what are called negative pressure air purifying respirators, as long as these respirators are going to be used in atmospheres where the concentration of the hazard is less than 10 times the workplace exposure standard. And they can also be used to fit test tight-fitting face pieces used with air, what are called atmosphere supplying respirators. The qualitative fit test is a pass or fail test. What does that mean? It means that it relies on the ability of the person being tested to test or to detect one of the three agencies or test agents that are approved under the Australia-New Zealand Standard 1715 of 2009. And these test agents are what is called isomer acetate, which has got a banana test, but this one should only be used to test respirators fitted with organic vapor cartridges. Or it could be saccharin, which has got a sweet test, which is used to test the respirators which are fitted with particulate filters of any class. And also it could be Bitrex, which has got a beta test, also used to test tight-fitting respirators fitted with particulate filters of any class. So each qualitative method uses a number of exercises, about 7 exercises. Now I'm going to explain the principle of this qualitative fit test. A person is actually assessed, or the respirator fit is actually assessed by subjecting the person to an airborne concentration of the test agent, which could be Bitrex, as I've said, the beta one, or saccharin, which is the sweet one, whilst the person is donning the respirator. But before doing that, a person has got to undergo what is called a sensitivity test. The sensitivity test is used to test the ability of a person or the threshold of the person to test the test agent. And if a person is not able to test the test agent, you cannot use this type. You have to use a different type of a test agent. They might not be able to test Bitrex, so you have to use the other one, which is saccharin. And if they are unable to test all those, you have to use a different type of a fit test. You can't use the qualitative fit test. And then the sensitivity test, as I said, you use a test solution which is designed to do that, and it's usually about a weaker solution of the actual test solution which you use to conduct the actual fit test. And then after the person is actually, a person would don what is called a hood, and the hood has got a hole through which a nebulizer is used to introduce the sensitivity test agent, which, as I said, which is usually about 10 times weaker than the actual one which you use for the actual test. And the person usually asked to breathe open through their mouth with their tongue slightly open like this. And then if a person, then what happens is during that process, using the sensitivity test nebulizer, the test agent is introduced by squeezing the nebulizer, and in doing so making sure that the bulb actually fully inflates at each time. So the nebulizer is squeezed, and normally you can put about 10 squeezes to detect the sensitivity of the person to detect that test agent. And if a person detects the test, a person will be asked to indicate that they've actually detected the test, maybe by lifting their hand. If they do that within less than 10 squeezes, it is recorded as 10 as the threshold for that person. And if they don't detect the test during those initial 10 squeezes, further squeezes are introduced to bring it up to 20. And whenever a person tests the squeezes during that, the actual sensitivity is recorded as 20. And then you go again. If they don't detect it during that, you go to the next stage, increase more of these squeezes up to about 30. And if a person detects that at that stage, the sensitivity test is recorded as 30. So that is how we actually do to determine the sensitivity. So it could record it as 10 if it is less than 10, 20 if it is less than 20, or 30 if it is less than 30. And once a person has detected that, the hood is now removed, and the person is given water to rinse the mouth, and also to wipe the lips, that is to take away the residues of the test agent that may be there. And then the hood which has been used has got to be wiped inside to remove any residual sensitivity test agent. And the person needs to wait for a period before the test can be conducted again, to make sure that they recover their sense of taste. And then what happens is there are different types of equipment which is used. First of all, you use this hood. This is the hood that I'm talking about. This is the hood that a person wears, and in front of the hood there is a hole through which a nebulizer is actually inserted, and this should actually be inserted in the aerosol introduced at least 15 centimeters from the person's breathing zone, in front of the person's face, about 15 centimeters away. Then you introduce that. But one other thing to note is that when you are actually squeezing the nebulizer, it is important to make sure that the nebulizer is able to release the aerosol. So once you've filled the test agent, or whether it's sensitivity test agent, into the sensitivity test nebulizer, you have to test to squeeze it and see the actual aerosol being released. And then this one here, is the actual, what we call the sensitivity test nebulizer. And as you can see, you've got the bulb here, which I say when you squeeze, you have to squeeze it and release it, let it inflate fully before you squeeze again. And then when you are actually introducing the test agent into the hood, you have to open these seals here, and then you have to insert the nebulizer through the hole here, like that, and then squeeze the bulb. And then you also have what comes with it is this one, which is FT31, or the beta. This is the Bitrex, which you use for detecting which to determine the person's threshold. And then once you have determined the person's threshold, you will now be able to proceed to carry out the actual qualitative fit tests after the normal or the required minimum protection factor for these respirators is based on the Australian standard 1715 of 2009. And normally, according to Australian requirements, each respirator in combination of filters is assigned what is given a protection factor, assigned protection factor, as I said, which is the protection factor expected for about 95% of clean-shaven, trained and fit-tested people. So the recommendation is that the required minimum protection factor should be 10 times that assigned protection factor. So for your respirators that we're talking about, your half-face and disposable respirator, it's usually 10. So the assigned protection factor, the required minimum protection factor should be 10 times 10, which is 100. And then it is also important that the respirators are actually properly inspected even before use, and also after each use and during cleaning. And this inspection will include things such as checking to make sure that your disposable respirators are not damaged. For example, the material itself is not damaged, or there are no holes, and also the strap elasticity is not compromised, and also that the metal nose clip is not deteriorated. This is all done to ensure that you can achieve a proper seal. And for your reusable half-face respirators, which are also used for this type of qualitative fit test, you need to actually check the face piece itself to make sure that there's no dent, there are no cracks, and also it's not torn, and also the harness to make sure that the harness is or the head strap is not damaged in any way. And also, if you have got your inhalation and exhalation valves, you have to make sure that to check that you don't have any residues such as detergent, such as dirt, such as dust, cracks, tears, and distortion, and any missing valve covers. And as I said, at the end of the test, it is important to actually clean these nebulizers, because what can happen is if these nebulizers just stay with the test agent or sensitivity agent in there, it can actually crystallize and block the jets. So it is important that after every qualitative fit test, these are thoroughly cleaned, they are opened and rinsed in warm water, and to check to see whether the jets inside are not blocked for the respirators, and if they are blocked, you can actually replace and put new jets. And also, as I said, at the end of it all, it is important to wipe the hood itself inside to make sure that it is clean. And this cleaning of the hood should actually be done between each and every test. And then for the respirators themselves, they have got to be cleaned. Your non-disposable respirator have got to be cleaned after each use according to the manufacturer's recommendation, and also using the recommended manufacturer's detergent. And if that is not available, you can actually remove the filters and then disassemble the face piece and rinse the parts in warm water, about 40 degrees Celsius, and you can use hypochlorite hypochlorite solution as a detergent, a sanitizer, but at the concentration of 50 parts per million, or aqueous iodine solution again at the concentration of about 50 parts per million. And as I said, the required fit factor for this, you are looking at about 10 times the assigned protection factor, which is for your filtering face pieces or disposable respirators, tight fitting, or your half face mask, which can be tested using this qualitative fit test. It's 10. So the required protection factor is calculated as 10 times 10, which is 100. And the filters that we've got to use for this one, as I said, for the Bitrex, using the Bitrex solution or using the saccharine solution, you have to use particulate filters of any class. And if you are going to go with the isoamar acetate, which has got a banana flavor, you have to connect what you call the organic vapor cartridges to the respirators for testing. And then after testing, the other thing that you need to do is to actually record. As I said, if a person has passed that, then you need to actually record the results of that fit test. And there are certain minimum requirements. You need to actually, in the record, you indicate the name of the person who has been fit tested. You also need to record the company or the department where the person works. And you also record the make, the model, and the size of the respirator that has been tested during the qualitative fit test, and whether the person, what other PPE was tested with that, such as I said, if a person wears glasses or things like that, and then the person who conducted the actual fit test itself, it's going to be recorded, and also the retests, when the retests are required, whether it is annually and things like that, that is going to be recorded as part of the record keeping processes. So those are the processes that are involved in carrying out a qualitative fit test. We are now going to demonstrate how to carry out a qualitative fit test using the OSHA 1910-134 standard and the Australian standard 1715 of 2009. And we are going to be using the 3M half face respirator with particulate filters connected. So I'm going to invite Sally to come in, and you can come in, Sally. So Sally, what I'm going to do is we are going to carry out this qualitative fit test, and I will explain to you what happens. For a respirator to provide the required level of protection, it needs to achieve a proper fit on the face. That is why we have to conduct a qualitative fit test. First time you wear a respirator, or whenever there's a change in facial features, or whenever the type of respirator needs to be used changes, or at least annually, every year. So what we're going to do, this qualitative fit test is based on your ability to test the test agent. There are different types of test agent. Today we are going to be using the Bitrex, which is a beta test agent. So we'll take you through what is called a sensitivity test to determine your threshold. And you will wear a hood, and then I'll be introducing the test agent into the hood. Then what you need to do is, once you test the agent, you need to lift your hand so that I know that you have tested the agent. That will give us your threshold for that particular test agent. And also you have to breathe through the mouth with your tongue slightly open. Okay. Then once we've finished that, I'm going to give you some water to rinse your mouth. Then you also need to wipe your lips to take away any residues of the test agent. Then we'll wait for a period of time. Then when you come back, you demonstrate to me how to don or to wear the respirator, and then we'll go on to the next stage, which is the actual fit test using the actual test agent. We are now going to carry out the sensitivity test. So what is happening, this is the nebulizer, and in the nebulizer I've put in a weak concentration, which is about 10 times weaker the actual test solution, to determine the threshold. And what will happen is you need to open your mouth and your tongue out, and I'll be squeezing. Initially I'll squeeze up to about 10. The moment you pick up a test, you lift your hand, then I stop. So if it reaches below 10, I will record that as your sensitivity to be 10. If you can't test that, I will continue squeezing. If it is less than 20, I will record that as 20. And again, if you can't test that, I will continue squeezing. Anything above that and less than 30, I will record your sensitivity as 30. But that is what you need to do at this stage. We're just determining your ability to test this. So I will put this about 15 centimeters from your mouth, from your face, and then you need to open your mouth with your tongue slightly out, and then I'll squeeze. The moment you test it, lift up with your tongue slightly out, like that, yes. Yes, thank you. That's all right. So you've tested the beta test, so it means the third. So your sensitivity test after 3 squeezes is 10. So what I will do is now I will remove you can remove the hood, and then I'll give you water. Here is some water. You can go and rinse and just rinse your mouth, and also wipe your lips to remove the residues. Sure. And we'll wait for a short period of time for you to gain your sense of taste, and then we'll proceed.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Sally, can you just wear the half-face respirator? Can you demonstrate? Can you put it on now before we carry out the actual fit test?
Sure.
So what is important is to make sure that you have a proper seal. As I said, yes. And what is also important is when you wear the half-face respirator, you have to make sure that the strap is not twisted. At the back, I'll just check to see whether it's not twisted. That's fine. And then to tighten the fit, so what you do is you pull these ones, yeah. You pull these straps up, and also the bottom ones. There's one here and another one there. You pull them up, then you can actually feel it tighten, right? Yeah. That's fine. And then what you do, this is all fitted with particulate filters. So what you need to do now is you do what is called a user seal check, a positive pressure and a negative pressure. You block the valve, and then you exhale, and then you should feel the air bulging in, and then you can block the filters, the center of the filters with your hands. Can you do that? Yes. Then what you need to do is to inhale. Can you do that? Yes, it should. You should feel it actually drawing towards your face. So that is just testing the seal. So now what will happen is, now you are now ready to start the test. And what is going to happen is you wear the hood, and then there are a number of exercises that you need to do. There are a total of 7 exercises. The first exercise is just normal breathing, where you just stand and breathe normally. Then the second exercise is deep breathing, deep breathing whilst you are standing. And the third exercise is moving your head side to side like this, side to side. What you need to do is you need to inhale at the extremes. So you move it slowly, you inhale at the extreme slowly, you inhale at the extreme. Then the next exercise after that will be moving your head up and down, like that, up and down, up and down, and then you actually inhale at the up position when you are looking up at the ceiling. Then the following exercise will be you talking loudly. So I will give you the rainbow passage. You can read the rainbow passage whilst I'm listening. I need to hear you talking. And then the next exercise after that will be bending down. So you actually bend down, but when you are bending down, hold the hood. There is a provision provided, a hole. You put your finger in a hole, then you actually bend down. Look as if you are looking at the floor.
Yeah.
And then up, down, up, whilst you are breathing normally. And then the last exercise will be just you breathing normally. And then what happens is I will be introducing the test agent, which is the Bitrex. And anytime that you smell the test or you detect it, if you detect it, you lift your hand up, then I will stop, because that will indicate that the test has failed. And if it doesn't fail, if you don't test it, then it will be, the test would have passed. And then after that, I will explain what you need to do. So you can don the hood now. And the main reason why we do this test is to mimic what happens in the workplace, because you need stability of the steel to be maintained. So all these exercises to actually see whether the feet will be maintained. It won't be disturbed in the workplace as people are working, as people are talking, as people are bending. Right. So that is it. So whenever you feel you test it, you need to lift your hand up to show me. Right. So before I proceed, I have to make sure that I remove these valves, that they are open, and I'm going to be introducing. Here test threshold was 3, which is represented by 10. So I'm going to introduce the 10 puffs, and then every half of that every 30 seconds to maintain the concentration in the hood as we go. So can you just breathe normally? I'm timing about a minute. Normal breathing. Just normal breathing. For 30 minutes. That's normal breathing. Right, that's it. Then the next exercise, you need, can you now move your head side to side? Right. Take a breath, side to side for a minute. Take a breath, side to side for a minute. Right. Side to side for a minute. Then the next exercise, you are now moving your head up and down. And in the extreme, as if everything is sitting, then you take a breath. So I have to be maintaining the concentration by introducing half the number of puffs for the sensitivity test every 30 seconds. Right. Then you are now doing the next exercise now, which is just talking loudly. So I'm going to maybe just tell me, instead of doing the rainbow, you can actually tell me a story, but saying it loudly. Maybe tell me about your trip to Africa, your travel from Cairo to Cape. Yes, so speaking loudly.
In 1996, we left London and we went to overland through many countries, and we got to Cairo. We had a stay in Cairo, and then we left by truck and travelled through the eastern starboard side of Africa. And then we had a wonderful time. We went to 22 countries in 1 year. And we culminated the trip in South Africa.
Yes, thank you. Then the next exercise, you are now bending down, and what you need to do is you bend down like that, as if you are doing it, but make sure hold this so that if you have down, right? Then up, breathing normally. You take a breath, inhale at the top, down, and then up, inhaling. Immediately down, right? Like that. Yes, that's it. Right, then the next exercise, you are just breathing normally. And what will happen after this, when you finish, I'm going to ask you to break the seal. So you just you have to sort of break the seal, pull it, the respirator, and to tell me whether you test it afterwards or not. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it's just to make sure that it maintains a seal. Not yet, we are not yet there. Just to make sure that breathing normally. No, that's all right. So what you can do is, what I also need to do now, we've come to the end, I have to test to see whether the nebulizer is still releasing the mist, which it is. And now I'll just ask you, just put your hand up below and just break the seal. Yes. Yeah. Show me whether you test. Yes. You can test it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. No, that's all right. So it's okay. You can remove it now. So it basically means that the respirator fit test is passed. As I said, this is a pass-fail test. And what it means is it has got to be worn like that right through up to the end. And
Yuck. Doesn't taste good.
yes. So it means that you have got to maintain the seal in the workplace. But then what happens is it doesn't. This is just what we are testing the seal at this time, but it does not represent the actual protection that will happen in the workplace, because that will depend on an effective seal, a person wearing it properly, an effective seal. So that is it. So well done.
Thank you.
And thank you.